Hello and welcome to All Four Wins Football and another episode of Lower League Lingo. We are 16 weeks in, and no, do not adjust your television sets. John has not got younger. We've got somebody new in because John just simply couldn't be bothered today. So we've got somebody in to replace him. Media officer at Stourbridge. WFC, FCW, never quite
bit
sure
of both, bit of both. Yeah.
Some very funny ones. Some people are women before the FC, some are women after the FC. But either way, Kieran represents them, and he is here today as our Midlands representative. Kieran, lovely to have you. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, buzzing to be on. I've been watching, a few episodes that you guys have been doing, absolutely smashing it. So yeah, good to get on and talk some waffle, I suppose.
Lovely. We like waffle. Waffle is good on this channel. And speaking of waffle, somebody who helps me to waffle often is Mr. Gareth. We've got him back after he couldn't be bothered last week. We had to replace him with Mr. Matt Crane, but lovely to have you back, Gareth. It's not the same without you. How are you doing? You all right?
Oh, that's very nice of you. Thank you. What was I doing last week? I've totally forgotten why I couldn't even make it last week. But just couldn't be bothered. So never mind. Back now though, and raring to go.
Indeed. You'll notice I've been bothered every single week, and that's because if I'm not bothered, it's probably not going to happen. So kind of have to work around it. But there we go. It's all good, and we are delighted to be back. So let's stop this inane waffle and start waffling about the important stuff. And when we're kicking off, amazingly, it never happens. We're starting with me. Being the South, we always go North, Midlands, South, but we go in order of hierarchy. And for me, the FA Cup is higher, because you can get WSL clubs in there. So here we go. It's me to kick off. And you might remember this from the conversation that we had last time, where we were asking the question, why was this game abandoned in the middle of the game? And the answer was, with QPR 1-0 up, the dugout broke. Just completely collapsed. This was during Storm Eric, or wherever it was, Storm Bert, whichever one we were in. It's one of the Sesame Street characters. And while that was going on, the dugout just completely collapsed, and they couldn't get it back together again. It was a bit like Humpty Dumpty. So they had to leave it for another week. And this was the week they decided to do it. And the reason why it intrigued me so much, because QPR 1-0 up. They are a side that are a bit higher up than Saltdean. They're second in Tier 5 at the moment, possibly going to be champions of that league if they are careful. They're in the London and South East regional. They've got Fulham, they've got Barking, they've got Dorking, they've got Dartford. All 5 of those teams could potentially walk away as the Queens of the Hill. But as good as they're doing, with QPR sort of languishing around the middle of the moment of the Division 1 South East, it was always going to be interesting to see how it went on. But I was just, the QPR, you're 1-0 up. It's just a massive banana skin to have to do it all over again. But you wouldn't have known it. They've gone out there. They've absolutely managed to own Saltdean on this occasion and have not been cowed by the occasion at all. Grace Stanley there, massive hat-trick for her. Consolidated herself as the top scorer for the club so far this season. She was on 6. She's obviously on 9 now after a cracking hat-trick. But the other 2 are also up there for their top scorers. There was 6-5-4 at the start of play. 6 for Stanley, 5 for Courtney Ward-Chambers, and 4 for, and I'm sorry if I get this wrong, Anna Jajic. But what was really interesting about that is that obviously they're now, having scored the goals, it's now 9, 6, and 5. So Grace Stanley well out there in terms of the goals. But yeah, I just thought, again, this is one of those where you really would want to keep your eye on how the score was going to go, how the game was going to go. But fair play to QPR. And Saltdean, they can be really, really proud of themselves. They'd have taken away roughly about £18,000 for making it to this point of the FA Cup, which isn't a huge amount of money. But again, for these clubs lower down, it can be the difference between carrying on for another season and not. So a really, really good bit of cash for Saltdean United. QPR, obviously, with a lot more. And for QPR, they've got a huge game coming up. And if I could just remember whereabouts I've written it, they're playing London Bees. That's right. They're away to London Bees in the third round, and that's cool because London Bees are fourth in Division 1 South East, QPR are sixth. So this is a massively winnable game. And of course, you win in the third round. What do you get? Potentially a WSL side come into your tier 4 ground, or you go into theirs. So a massive day out for either QPR or London Bees, both of whom doing incredibly well in their league. And it'll be very, very interesting in my eyes to see what happens next there. But that's my little FA Cup diatribe that I was really wanting to get through. And there we go. And of course, Charlotte Stewart got booked as well, which will be noteworthy at the end of this show. However, back to the north we go. And it is the wonderfully named Norton and Stockton Ancients FC. I've got to be honest, it's a bit tricky for me as a Man United fan, putting a Leeds United badge on my computer. I will have to go and get this wiped. But nonetheless, we're a very inclusive group here on WOFO. And what a win this is for Leeds United. And it's a massive one. So, Gaza, why is it so important that Leeds United have bopped Norton 3-0?
This league is becoming one of my favourite leagues across the country to follow as a total neutral. And the reason is it feels like every time I pick a game from this league, it has mad consequences either at the top of the league or the bottom of the league, with leaders changing, the two teams in the relegation zones changing rather regularly. And this is another example of that. Leeds had some games in hand. I've always been clear that I would rather have points on the board than games in hand. Well, now Leeds have got those points on the board. Most teams have played 11 games now towards the top end of this league. I think Middlesbrough are one behind. But Leeds go top with this win. So, Norton have picked up some good results throughout the season. At home, those kind of northwest trips can be a little bit arduous, potentially, kind of longer trips in the northern leagues. But Leeds have gone up there and have absolutely got the job done. Amy Woodruff double, Catherine Smith, the sandwich in between those two goals, the filling in between those two goals, rather. And yeah, 130 people there to watch, and Leeds United go top of the league. As we start to approach Christmas, usually you kind of have an idea about where people are going to be, how the leagues are going to shape up. But I can't call this league. I think it's super close. I know that the Leeds side are well supported, and yeah, things going brilliantly for them so far this season, and they will be hoping that they can start to maybe stretch out a little bit of a lead in the coming weeks. And yeah, I don't think they have FA Cup games to worry about. There are other teams in that league that do have FA Cup games, so they'll be able to get points on the board. Hopefully for them, they'll want to kind of push that lead on and see where they can really take it. But we've gone from a few weeks ago, a month or so ago, Middlesbrough looking comfortable at the top of the league. We've had Cheadle at the top of the league. We've had Chorley kind of flirting with being there or thereabouts, and now Leeds are top. So really interesting. Very much here for a crazy title race. I think it shows the Northern Premier Division has kind of had a few, Division 1 North rather, has had a kind of few funny years. Newcastle were there or thereabouts for a while. Once Feds picked them to the post, then the next season it always felt like Newcastle were going to just fly away with it. Last season was a bit closer, but Hull ended up kind of going and winning the league relatively comfortably. But now to have a completely wide open title race into December is just really nice to see. So, yeah, like you say, Barry, it's Leeds United, but separating out the team from the club in general, it's super interesting as a neutral, and hopefully the title race continues right up until the wire, and the relegation scrap as well.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I've moved in the hope that nothing too much was going on there, but I was in and out of consciousness on the old Wi-Fi there. So I've moved a little bit closer to the router, and hopefully that will get rid of any issues that we are currently experiencing. But Division 1 North is looking, as you said, quite amazing. Leeds United top of the table now. Obviously, Cheadle Town were in FA Cup action, so unable to reply, but it has levelled up those games. So Cheadle Town dropping level on points with Chorley, who moved up along with Huddersfield Town. Middlesbrough dropped, Barnsley up. And again, from 6 downwards, it's really a relegation scrap, whereas 5th upwards is for the title. Obviously, Fylde still sat at the bottom. And of course, York out of the relegation zone, thanks to their result, with Doncaster Rover Bells just below. Some big games coming up as well at the weekend. Obviously, Middlesbrough are going to be at Newcastle. They're in the FA Cup, so they won't be playing any league games next week. Sunderland will be at home to Huddersfield, and West Bromwich Albion will be hosting Cheadle Town Stingers. So, Chorley could end up with Leeds United not playing. If they get a decent enough win, obviously 4 or more goals would be required. Chorley could end up top of the table if they can defeat York City. Fylde are playing Barnsley. You've got Durham Sestria against Doncaster Rovers Bells, so that's a big game for Donny Bells in the hope that they could try and get themselves out of that relegation zone. And of course, Norton and Stockton Ancients will be up against Stockport County, who we might see a little bit more of shortly. But for now, he's waited long enough. It is time to get the debutante out of the box and see what he's got in store for us. He has got Sutton Coldfield against Leafield Athletic. And just before he kicks off, I'd like to have a little chat just to you. Yes, you. Whoever it was who was looking at this and went, oh, that's not the right Leafield Athletic badge. No, you're right. And maybe it's not. This is the one that's on Twitter, and I've updated it. So I thank you for your feedback. But can you have the same argument with full time, please? Because every time I've done a badge, I've always done it on full time, looking at where it is and then finding it through Google. I've gone to their Twitter pages now to make sure that we've got their badges correct. But on full time, it was the nice, colourful one. So that's why I got it wrong. And I apologise, but thank you for letting us know. We like it when you tell us what's going on. Kieran, why is Sutton Coldfield against Leafield Athletic such a big game for you this week?
Yeah, this was a massive tie in the Division 1 Midlands. It's been a really interesting league to watch. Like the Northern equivalent, it's very much end to end, right at the top of the table, and also right at the bottom as well. Leafield are one of those teams that are sort of gunning for promotion, almost out of nowhere. Really, they've spent the last two or three seasons in and around the relegation zone. New manager in this season, a whole load of new players, and they've really shot up the league. Whereas Sutton Coldfield are one of those teams that are petering around the relegation zone. As it went into this one, Leafield was sat in 2nd, whereas Sutton Coldfield was sat in 9th. And a little bit on their recent form as well, because I think this is quite interesting. Sutton Coldfield have lost 3 on the bounce, including 2 losses to Loughborough Lightning, one being 2-1 and the other being 3-0. And after that 3-0 one, their old manager, Ryan Hamilton, actually departed the club for personal reasons. And then they went on to play a county cup game against West Brom with an interim manager. They lost 7-1, but it's nothing really to read into. So yeah, ever since then, obviously, Sutton Coldfield have been looking for a new manager. Steve Benyon is the guy that they've appointed. He's a guy that has spent a lot of time in men's football. He's been at sort of TNS, Shrewsbury Town, Walsall, a lot of teams sort of in that local area around by us. So yeah, obviously he was up for it. He was definitely wanting to go into it confident. He actually went on to say that they weren't scared going into Sunday. Obviously, Leafield, a tough side, but no reason to have any scares apparently for them. And also goalkeeper Neve Jones also made her first appearance back for Sutton after 4 months out for personal reasons. So obviously great to see her back in the game. Whereas Leafield, they like I say, they've started the season amazingly, went on a very good unbeaten run, a clean sheet run as well. I think they had potentially 6 clean sheets in a row at one point. But they've started to slip up in the last 2 games, a couple of losses. one in the County Cup to Birmingham City Academy on penalties, and a 1-0 loss to Norwich City in the FA Cup as well. So potentially rocking the boat slightly. And then obviously this on top is a third successive defeat. So yeah, they had to do something, and they welcomed two new acquisitions into their side just before kickoff. Lucy Davies, who's a talent from West Brom, I think only 16 years old, so one for the future definitely. And Molly Waters is a player from Solihull who actually started the game. So yeah, she's obviously got a bit of quality and something that Leafield could potentially use. Yeah, you mentioned you got on the screen there the goals. An own goal in the 6th minute, I believe, by Sophie Easelgrave, but no one has actually publicly said who it's by. But that's the rumor going around. Yeah, obviously 6 minutes in, good to get a start for who are technically the underdogs in this occasion. So yeah, and then Jess Lowe, obviously a former Starbridge player, a player that I know very, very well. A lot of talent, a lot of pace. The keeper has a shot from Abby Cowie saved right into the path of Jess Lowe, who then equalises for the visitors. And then another familiar name for Starbridge fans, Neve Deasy, who obviously won the Golden Boot in this division a couple of years ago, regained the lead with a long-range effort. After being slid through by another former Glasgow, Lauren De Casto, with a hard and low finish across the goal into the bottom left-hand corner. And then a little bit about what's next for both sides. Sutton Coldfield face a struggling Solihull Moors after all the trouble that's gone on there recently. There are plenty of exits managerially and players-wise. So possibly a chance for Steve to continue his little run here and make it 2 wins on the bounce. Whereas Leafield have a very, very important tie. It's first versus second as they travel to Northampton. Obviously, losing 3 on a row now is not great for them going into this. But both have been shock risers up the table. So Northampton have also been that mid-table, almost relegation team for the last few years alongside Leafield. So it's going to be a really, really interesting match this Sunday.
I absolutely agree. It seems really, really interesting. And again, when we move into the Division 1 Midlands, you can see not a huge amount of changes because there wasn't 101 games being played. Obviously, so there would only be 6, but not many of them were being played either, with FA Cup games and such like taking place. So no change in the top 4. But we do see is Boldmere, St Michael's, Swaffham, Notts County, and of course, Sutton Coldfield moving up on goal difference over Lincoln United. Again, big games coming up. Stoke will be playing Loughborough Lightning on the 5th of December. So for you guys, that's tomorrow, watching this. And this will be the opportunity for Loughborough, obviously, to make it into the next round of the FA Cup. Now, if they win it, that means they are, for Loughborough, they will have the opportunity to play again on the 8th. They will be playing Chester Street Town, whoever wins that game of Stoke and Loughborough Lightning. So that's your little FA Cup update on what's happening there. But in terms of the Division 1 Midlands, again, some fairly big games. Barnsley Women will be facing Boldmere St Michael's. A nice little mid-table clash going on there. Lincoln United are up against Notts County. We've got hopefully Loughborough Lightning against Lincoln City, unless of course they go on to win on midweek. We've got Northampton at the top. They're playing Leafield Athletic, top there second. Wow. Peterborough against Worcester, and we have got Sutton Coldfield Town against Solihull Moors. And don't forget Solihull Moors with that point deduction for a discipline charge. Me again. Okay. So again, you remember last week I brought this one up as a match that I really wanted us to pay attention to, the one that everybody should be looking out for. And so, again, in the absence of much else happening across many of the leagues, I felt like this was a good one to go for. I was surprised by the attendance, only 94 for a start. I would have expected a few more. For a game that I think has got quite a bit of magnitude in it. Now, the WNL Cup and Plate may not be the most prestigious, but Hashtag are the champions of the WNL Cup. They won it last year, and I've been championing Real Bedford in terms of how well they've been running their club over the last couple of years and what they've been doing. Real Bedford, for me, probable favourites to go up from the Division 1 South East with the way in which they've performed. They've had a really, really good run. They did go out of the FA Cup, but that was their only defeat so far this season. They have worked incredibly hard in their league, whereas Hashtag, as we know, pretty much unbeaten as well, I think. And as a result, it was just like the immovable force against the irresistible object, all of that sort of thing. And absolutely unreal to see how this game went, because if Bedford do make it up, there's a chance they could be playing against Hashtag again next season, unless, of course, Hashtag get promoted, in which case they won't. So for me, I was looking at this as a little bit of a barometer. Are Real Bedford in a position where they can go into the Southern Premier and compete? Where will they be? Now, Hashtag, let's be clear, are one of the better sides in the Southern Premier. They are going to be a side that are difficult to play against, difficult to beat. They're always there or thereabouts in terms of winning the league and do well within these cups as well. So they're a very good, well-run side who are working incredibly hard to make their brand even bigger and more accessible for people to see. They stream matches live, all of those types of things. Real Bedford starting to follow suit in terms of how they're performing. And I just found this a real surprise. You know, Hayley West, after 2 minutes, an early goal changes games, by the way. Really, very important. All of the things you planned for sort of gets ripped up, and you've got to start thinking about how you're going to change it. You've moved on to plan B immediately because the idea was for it to be 0-0 and you're the one to go there. And now you've got to change what you're doing. So that wouldn't have helped. But again, to concede so soon after, with Frankie Finlayson after 13 minutes, it's 2-0 down, 13 minutes gone. And to be honest, from that point on, Hashtag just didn't take their foot off the throat of Real Bedford, really. A couple of goals in the second half there, Jade Keogh and Malika Gil. And as a result, you're left looking at that thinking Hashtag have absolutely smashed Real Bedford. So as a bit of a barometer, where would you rank that? For me, it's one game. You can't take one game and go, this is the sample, but it is interesting to see both sides had full sides out, full teams, so not many people dropped for the quarterfinal. And I just think it'll be really very intriguing now to see what happens with Real Bedford. Will they continue? Will they bounce back from this? Is this just, don't worry, it's a cup game? Will they continue to dominate and do well within their league? I would imagine so. But it just goes to show they won the Eastern region, moved up into Division 1 South East, and they got rid of a few players like Tash Benson, one of their top goal scorers, ended up going to Luton. Gemma Croucher, she came to us at Stevenage. So these are players that have moved up a level but have come back down to Tier 5, not because they're not good enough for Tier 4, but because either they were knowing they weren't going to get games, potentially, because of the fact that Real Bedford were bringing in other people who potentially they felt were going to be Tier 4 level to help them get to Tier 3. So far it's working, but will they be able to follow that same model next season if they make it up to try and do the same thing in the Southern Premier? So for me, absolutely fascinating. Two big teams to be looking out for. The potential for Hashtag to be in the Championship next season, and of course, the potential for Real Bedford to make it to Tier 3. So there we go. Massive game and a big one for Hashtag. Can't tell you the semi-finals, by the way, because they've not been drawn yet. But once young Kieran has been, we will run you through where we stand in the state of play with the WNL Cup and Plate. And the reason why is because Kieran has chosen the WNL Plate. He's picked a quarter-final between Stockport and Cheltenham Town Ladies, and it's quite a result. Kieran, tell us why this one was one of the games that you thought you should talk about.
Yeah, definitely clinging onto the name of the Midlands by a fine margin with Cheltenham here. But yeah, you know, this was a brilliant sort of occasion. Obviously, Cheltenham. If people don't know what's gone on with Cheltenham, they've been on a really decent run recently. They've won against Moneyfields in the FA Cup, who are a Tier 4 side. Cheltenham are a Tier 3 side, so it was always going to be expected. But now that gets them into the third round of the FA Cup, so always a good sign getting the money in it. And yeah, they've been on a decent run of form in the league as well. A 2-0 win over Plymouth before that. Admittedly, before that as well, a 7-0 loss to Ipswich. However, they are the current league leaders. So it's your equivalents to your Wolves and your Rugby in the northern equivalent of Tier 3. But yeah, obviously going into the quarterfinals of the plate, they would have wanted to win. I almost see them as favourites for this competition now. I think there are a few decent sides left in the plate still, but I think Cheltenham potentially could go all the way and do it. That'd be really interesting to see. Stockport, however, on a very much on a decline right now. This makes it four losses in a row for them. Starting off with a 4-2 loss against Chorley, a 6-2 loss against Mancunian United FC in the FA Cup, and a 4-3 loss against York City as well in the league, which currently sees them 9th in the Division 1 North. So clearly there's goals in the side. However, the problem seems to lie in stopping them going in, basically. So yeah, the little pre-match sort of information that I picked up. This was Steve O'Hara, the Stockport manager's 100th game. Clearly not one that he would have enjoyed all that much. But Stockport hadn't actually played for a few weeks due to various reasons. I think a few postponements and different things going on. But O'Hara felt that his squad were well rested and ready to go into this one. However, I feel, and evidently potentially what might have happened is that this can actually have a few negative implications on the side. You know, not being match fit and that match ready. So yeah, it's not always a positive, I don't think. On the other hand, Cheltenham's manager Tom Davis said that he was actually looking forward to facing a new opposition, obviously contrasting the style that we sort of see with these southern teams. We know that the northern teams are a lot more physical. So, you know, to play those sides, I guess you have to sort of rethink how you're playing, how you're going up against a side like this. So that was very interesting for him to come out and say. And I also spoke to the assistant manager, Mike Harris, who I get on very well with, obviously former manager of Stourbridge. Yeah, he was looking forward to this, but obviously it's a long drive, which is what he mentioned, from Cheltenham to Stockport. It's a minimum 2.5 hours. So, you know, that's not even taking into account some of the girls that live potentially farther south than Cheltenham itself. So it takes a toll. You know, we've seen it countless times what these long journeys can do to sides, and you know, potentially it hampers them on the day. So you know, if this game was to be played potentially at Cheltenham, would the outcome have been a greater win for Cheltenham potentially? And obviously, this is a massive occasion for both sides. There's been a lot more money pumped into the plate and the cup from the National League this season, which makes it, you know, a much more, you know, a competition that a lot of people want to go and do well in and actually win, because for some teams, you know, the expenses of travel and, you know, having to get to places that are further away, it just isn't worth it for them. So for there to be an actual, you know, monetary gain from this competition is definitely a good thing to see. So obviously you can see on screen, Stockport took the lead. Lizzie Hamer, she's actually been one of their standout players that I've seen on social media. She's a midfielder who arrived from Burnley in the summer. Unfortunately, there's no footage of this goal, but it sounds like an absolute corker. A free kick that has been drilled into the top left corner. So yeah, she continues her good form for Stockport. However, it took until the 84th minute, sorry, about to say 83rd, 84th minute for Lily Wesley Davis to get Cheltenham back on level terms. She's actually been known as sort of an aerial threat, and this is exactly what happened again. A good ball in from the corner, and she gets a head on it and meets it, which is something you actually don't see too often in the women's game, especially at these lower levels. Corners being won and converted as well. So that was really good to see. And then extra time, obviously there's a cup competition. Extra time followed after that, and it took 5 minutes for Macy Collis to get the away team back leading. A couple of Stockport mistakes in and around the area. The goalkeeper didn't really get it fully away, and then, you know, a bit of a mix-up between the midfielders. Saw Maisie get the ball in a bit of space. She looks up and sees the keeper just off guard, and yeah, she absolutely rifles it home and gives the host the lead. So yeah, like you mentioned, obviously, I think we're going to go in a bit more detail about who is next for these sides. But just off the top of my head, I think it's Southampton Academy, Bournemouth, and the winner of also Manchester United and Loughborough Lightning, who was a game that was postponed. But obviously, before that, the next match is Stockport play Norton and Stockton Ancients, which is a side that I hadn't heard of before. A bit of a bizarre name for them, but I love it. They play away there this Sunday, so it's a big game for them as they attempt to sort of pull away from that relegation zone. Whereas Cheltenham have a massive tie in the FA Cup third round against Norwich, who are a Tier 4 side, however, are a decent Tier 4 side, so they will definitely not want to sort of go into that thinking it's already won or anything like that. But you know, on paper, just like this one, it is a winnable tie for them. So it is a good chance for them to get a bit of money into the club and you know, continue this brilliant start to the season they've had and progress more in a few more cup competitions.
Yep, no, you're not kidding at all. So yeah, some big things there. We do have teams already through. So in the WNL Cup, we've seen hashtag obviously Plymouth also made it through with a 1-0 win over Watford, I think. So both those sides are through. However, Burnley have got to play Stoke. They're playing on the 14th of December. Middlesbrough have got to play Nottingham Forest on the 15th of December. So once those two games are over, we will have all four teams. The draw, by the way, for both trophies is on the 14th of December. So Middlesbrough and Nottingham Forest will know who they are playing against, who the winner will be playing against, rather, on that day. In the plate, we already know Cheltenham, we've just seen. AFC Bournemouth also made it through. Southampton FC made it through. And as you've just mentioned, Kieran, the Man United Academy will be facing, just say that very quietly so that Gareth doesn't get too upset. Sorry, it's the Southampton FC Academy, so he's had to go off for that. But the Man United Academy will be playing Loughborough Lightning again on the 15th of December. So we will know at that point what the semi-finals will look like. There we go. That's where we stand on that. So he's going to be closing the show in terms of the review bit, which is rare for Gaza because he's usually up north having the first and fourth shouts, but he's in today. And as you can see here, we could be here for some time. It is Darwin FC against Wythenshawe FC. The WEC Anchor Ground. And I have to be honest, that made me giggle a lot more than it should have done because that is really close to being an unfortunate name. Thankfully, it's not. So with that in mind, Gaza, talk us through this 9-goal humdinger.
I mean, it's mad. I try not to pick Wythenshawe when we can. I like to shine a light on some other teams. But given that going into this game, Darwin were top of the table, and at Wythenshawe we were behind, and whoever came out with 3 points was going to go back to the top of the league. Started off quickly, 2 goals disallowed inside the opening 10 minutes for offside. But we're eventually able to find that breakthrough when Kirsty Chambers charged down the left-hand side, cut the ball hard across the 6-yard box, and Libby Dixon was there to finish at the back post to give us the lead. Stretched that lead not too long afterwards when Kirsty scored straight from a corner. Bizarre goal. She didn't think she'd hit it properly. We on the bench thought she'd kicked it straight out of play because it was just along the ground. And then the people in the box started celebrating, and we were like, what? But you take it, absolutely take it. So 2-0 up. Darwin got a goal back, and then on 44 minutes, scored a penalty. Disappointing way to finish the first half. Still not convinced it was a penalty, but coming together, the keeper kind of claimed the ball, coming together between the defender and the goalkeeper, penalty given. I don't know if it's my own biases, but hey, the penalty was given, that was it, and we went into the break at 2-2. Come out of the start of the second half, and some discussions led to a Wythenshawe player being sin-binned, and the second one was sin-binned shortly afterwards. So when Lulu Newton scored her goal to make it 3-2 to Darwin, we had 9 players on the pitch. The fact that a sin bin is playing time was tricky here. It meant it took a long time to get some players back on the pitch. But again, in the face of adversity, some real kind of quality comes through. Back to 11v11, and Kirsty's not been back on the pitch very long, and she scores an absolute fantastic goal. Really great ball through from Grace Bradley. Kirsty runs onto it. I'm looking at the line, hoping that he doesn't put his flag up, just expecting to turn and see it go up. After Kirsty had slotted the ball into the back of the net, doesn't. We're back on level pegging. And then Kira's goal from a corner, sort of shortly afterwards. Ball comes across. Kira is unmarked towards the back post on the volley into the back of the net. And, it's the kind of scenes of jubilation as we've kind of come from having 9 men on the pitch, 3-2 down, to now lead 4-3. But, 1 goal leads, I don't like them. Neither does Chelsea Flanagan by the looks of it, because Libby Dixon did a genuinely, in my opinion, disgusting flick to set Chelsea through. Runs on, makes no mistake to finish that. 5-3. And the old footballing cliche, 2-goal leads, the most dangerous lead in football. Doesn't matter, because Kira then put a lovely ball into the box for Grace to finish fantastically. And we come away then from Darwin with all 3 points and go to the top of the table as we approach the midway point in the season. I'm sure when Barry kind of moves on to the table shortly, we'll see. But it's another league that's looking super interesting from the top half down to the bottom half. Unity haven't played a huge amount of games. They're in 5th. They've had games moved and postponed because of their FA Cup run. But if they kind of get some of their games in hand, played, and points on the board, then they could be up there in the 20s in terms of points as well. A little bit higgledy-piggledy in terms of games being played and everyone being sort of out of sync with each other. But you've got the top 5 teams in a title race of sorts. Hopefully, being biased, it's not too close. But we shall see. And then from 6th down to 11th, trying to avoid that 1 relegation spot. Barry will probably mention this anyway, but since we last looked at the Northwest League, us at Wythenshawe have moved off the top and then reclaimed it this last week. So it says equal there. We did drop as far down as 3rd 2 weeks ago, beat Curzon last week, moved back above them, beat Darwin this week, moved back above them to reclaim top spot. But a game that kind of had everything really, penalties, sin bins, teams kind of going ahead, clawing it back, taking the lead, being clawed back, lead going in front again, and just goals everywhere. So a real advert for football, but definitely glad for us to have the 3 points in the bag from there. And yeah, I think on a kind of personal level, I think there's a lot of players, everybody in the squad really. It could have been so easy when you go 3-2 down, had some players sin-bin, for heads to drop and for Darwin to go and get a second goal. But, to defend with 9 players and only concede 1 goal within that sort of period of time, fantastic. And then for the forwards to get back on, and both Kirsty and Chelsea, after their sin-bins, getting on the score sheet, making amends. There was a kind of real good sense of kind of achievement and yeah, it just driving back from Blackburn could have been a long hour and 20 minutes home to Liverpool, but it felt like a breeze.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I mean that league, I don't know, I seem to pick them, but title scraps and relegation scraps galore up north.
You're not kidding. You're not kidding. It is absolutely kicking off up north, which is what we want to see. Absolutely. And as you mentioned, the last time we looked at this, Wythenshawe played 6 games, I think, and quite a few of the other teams had as well. So it's been quite a long time. I had to move this up about 30 slides. So it was quite a lot for us to move. But as you can see, I'll run through the league. Gaza did a great job of doing that, but I will make a couple of points because you'll see some with stars next to them. Darwin, I mean, they have indeed lost points as well. They fielded an eligible player against Fleetwood. Tranmere just below them. They've had points done because they fielded an eligible player against Salford. What are you shouting at me for? What's wrong?
I didn't say anything.
Okay. Well, must have been hearing a feedback on myself there. Sorry, I'm not looking at you now. I'm on the screen. And then, interestingly, Darwin involved in the next 2 as well. So West Didsbury and Fleetwood, both of them, and don't forget Chorlton as well, who I've managed to spell correctly this week. Between the 2 of them, also points deducted, both of them for non-fulfillment of the fixture against Darwin. So there we go. That is the evolution of that league. Thank you very much. I'm here all week. Right, we have got one little thing left to do, and that is our usual what match we're looking forward to. We're going to go straight back to Gaza because he's in the north. Where should people be casting their beady eyes this week?
I'm kind of taking us to the Midlands a little bit, but Rugby Borough against Mancunian Unity. So I think Unity have had a fantastic FA Cup run, had a good run last year, got knocked out by Newcastle. So their reward this year is another Northern Premier Division side. And yeah, it's Rugby are playing well at the moment. It's going to be a real test for Unity, but regardless of what happens, I think on Sunday all of them can be really pleased, really proud of the run that they've had, and I hope that they get a lot of players down there, and that it goes well for them, and they have a good day.
I agree. I had written that down. I'm sorry I didn't go through the Northwest fixtures. There are some big ones in there. We won't go through all of them, but Tranmere against Darwin is obviously a big one. That's Tranmere 3rd, Darwin 2nd. So, of course, Wythenshawe, if they can get past West Didsbury and Chorlton, will find themselves 3 points clear of Darwin as well. So, very, very big game there. I've done those, so I might as well do the other 2. Bury against FC United and Curzon Ashton against Fleetwood. So those are the league games that are taking place in that one. Kieran, brilliant debut so far. Can you bring it home? What is the match that all Midlanders should be flocking to en masse?
Yeah, you should all be flocking to Starport Swifts, which is a place I'm sure not many people will be that familiar with. But that's actually where Kidderminster Harriers are taking on Blackburn Rovers in the FA Cup this weekend. It's a massive, massive tie. Obviously, Blackburn of the Championship versus Kidderminster of Tier 5. Obviously, a lot of eyes were on the previous round. Starbridge taking on Kidderminster. Starbridge lost on penalties, 1-1 after extra time, and then penalty shootout masterclass from Kidderminster to see them through. Kiddie, I'm sure you all know the story about Kiddie. I don't need to bore you with it anymore. I'm sure John's done all that for me.
Just once or twice a show.
There's a lot of ties to Kidderminster and Starbridge currently. Obviously, Andy Fisher, the manager there, previously of Starbridge, and about 1 million players as well. I always like to see them doing well. A lot of friends there. So hopefully, wishing them all the best this weekend, and hopefully they can cause an upset.
Yeah, a very big one indeed. I know that John Foster MEFC was absolutely gutted that he wasn't on today, because you can absolutely bet everything you own that Kidderminster versus Stourbridge was going to be top of the pops for him. So the fact he hasn't been able to talk about that, probably the reason why he's not here. He's probably just upset somewhere, rocking backwards and forwards. That was his ultimate moment, and it's been stolen away from him. Unlucky John. My match is very, very simple. It's an easy one. And it is another FA Cup game. So you might have noticed where next week's going to be going. It's probably going to have a fair few FA Cup fixtures in it. But it is Portsmouth, that's Championship Portsmouth, against Luton Town. Now, I've got to tell you a little story. It's a very quick one, but what a game we saw at the county ground. It was Stevenage against Luton. Like Gaz, I'm not a massive fan of constantly talking about Stevenage, but it's only the third time I've brought them up. So I feel like I can get away with that in 16 shows. But what a game it was. Like, honestly, I've never seen anything like it. It wasn't necessarily that there was lots of chances. There wasn't. They were at a premium, but you saw two sides at the top of their leagues, absolutely humdinger of a game. Everything going on in the midfield. The defences were tenacious. The attacks were frustrated more often than not, or pot shots. And it was right at the beginning, 5 minutes in, that Stevenage took the lead. Absolutely superb. They got through, ball down the right, Amy Goodrum, ball in, and we think Gemma Croucher, hard to tell, got a touch to it, and that was what put it in. It's either that or an own goal, but we think it's Gemma, so we've given it to her. But ball goes in, 1-0. Stevenage do a great job to begin with. Very mature performance. But then, out of nowhere, lose the ball in the middle. Couple of little passes from Luton. 20 yards out. Wallop. Amber Layton. Top corner. Can't justify anything other than a round of applause for that one. Of course, the coaches will tell you differently. The defenders should have closed down, all that sort of jazz. But I'm not a coach. I'm on the media side of things. So I'm going to sit there and wax lyrical about what I've seen, whether it be good or whether it be bad. Brilliant goal. And then no more goals were scored. There were some great opportunities. Amy Makewell one-on-one. There were long shots from Luton, but they weren't really troubling. Wide if they were shooting. And then a last-minute free kick from Gemma Croucher. Top corner. Palmed away. Penalty shootout. Oh, my God. If anyone's ever watched Man United against Villarreal in the Europa League final, that's what this penalty shootout was. There were 20, count them, 20 penalties taken with not a single one of them missing. And then up stepped Luton, Tanya Blacksley, her one's saved. She must be gutted. She's thinking, oh my God, that's us out of the cup. But the goalie, our goalie, has to step up and take the penalty, which is saved. We're all sitting there going, oh, here we go again. We had to go all the way back around. So the first 5 penalty takers take all of their penalties. The first 9 of them score. And unfortunately, the 5th one for Borough was saved. It was a good save, but a good height at the same time. And there you go. Luton make it through. So why is that a good match to watch? Portsmouth, the Championship. Luton of Tier 5. It's a cup set waiting to happen. And honestly, I hope they do, because I think it's great for lower league football when we see these sorts of stories appearing. Because one of the things you'll see in some of the other places in the FA Cup, there's been some massive results like 19-0, 15-0 happening where these games have gone on. So hopefully it's a nice, tight contest. So there we go. That's where you should be watching if you're in the south. That's it. Kieran, great debut. Thank you very much. Lovely to have you in. Thank you for replacing John. We might ask you to come back. He was quite good, wasn't he? I don't know. Maybe John might be getting himself out of a job at this rate. Yeah, very good. Gaza, lovely to have you as ever. And of course, you, the adoring public, lovely to have you along as well. We'll see you next week for another probable FA Cup special. But until then, have a wonderful week and we'll see you next time.